This is a short excerpt of a much larger story that I'm writing. I apologize if it does not make sense because of that. The Reformed and the Rebel by Serena Breeze. Dmitri prayed he didn't look as nervous as he felt on the inside. He had now been kidnapped by the rebellion for 19 hours. The assailants were taking him to see their empress. The way one of them cringed at the mention of the empress let him know that even his captors were afraid of this woman. He stood in front of a large set of doors in handcuffs, and the female captor, Kira, typed a code into the keypad. He, of course, didn't trust her, as she was a Tauret, but he was beginning to like her, as she was one of the captors that spoke to him like a normal person. The rest of them all acted like he killed someone. Telling them he was just simply the president's secretary didn't seem to help. Just as he was contemplating jumping out a window to escape, he felt Kira lightly squeeze his hand. He wished he still had his left eye so he could see her face in his peripheral vision. Was it an accident, or was she purposefully trying to help him? Either way, he felt much calmer. Kira spun him around to face her and took both his handcuffed hands. "Hey, it's gonna be okay. Trust me. The government is much more dangerous than us Taurets. I know they told you to be afraid of us and our superpowers, but you've known me for quite a bit now. I haven't tried to steal your soul, eat babies, or whatever the lies are about us now. I'm just like you. The only difference is that Taurets like me can control the 4 elemental powers. And we kind of have big ears. Also, Reina wants you to return to your home as soon as possible. She just needs to get something she wants first." Kira pushed the doors open to reveal a room very much like the government's own boardroom, with a long table taking up most of its space. The only difference was the woman standing at the head of the table. The first thing he noticed about her was that she was tall, possibly taller than him. She wore a tight steel gray suit with studs decorating the shoulders. A white-collared shirt was visible underneath, with most of the top unbuttoned to reveal a gold chain that matched her large hoop earrings. While dressed professionally, she had bright purple hair. She looked nothing like the identical government agents and citizens he was familiar with. She was so unique. "Dmitri, is it? Please. Sit down." She smiled coyly. Her eyes flashed a deep purple for a moment. His fears were correct. The Empress was terrifying. He did as he was told, taking a seat. "Empress?" Kira bowed her head in respect before sitting. Reina spoke again. "Dmitri, you are close with President Satine Stevens, are you not?" Well, that wasn't the question he was expecting. He tried to keep his expression unreadable. They were trying to throw him off his guard. Reina smirked. "I've been trying to discover any sort of weakness in her for years, and it seems as though you could be the key." Dmitri was growing angrier by the minute. While he certainly didn't have feelings for his ex, he didn't want these lowlives to cause her harm. "How did you get this information? Who's working for you in the government?" "We have our ways of obtaining information. Far more effective and hidden than your ridiculous surveillance systems. While we were trying to get information on President Satine, our agent mistakenly went into your room instead of hers. What we found was enough to make us believe capturing you could be lucrative for us." Reina pulled something out of her suit pocket and placed it on the table. Dmitri gasped. The photo that went missing from his nightstand. He hadn't seen it since he and Satine had broken up, but just assumed he'd thrown it away in anger. It was a photo from the annual Governor's Gala. The only photo he had of them from when they were a couple. She was clearly intoxicated, as in the picture she was smiling. She had her arms wrapped around Dmitri's neck. He was speechless. "What do you want?" he growled. What would the president be willing to exchange for the safe return of her lover? Dmitri tried not to let the pain show on his face when he gave her the answer he knew was true. "Nothing." Reina frowned. "You're bluffing." Dmitri let out a humorless chuckle. "I wish. We're no longer together, and even if we were, I'm certain she wouldn't care. The only thing the president cares about is justice, and her mission to return this country to its rightful state." Reina frowned. "Tell me this, Dmitri. Who would this rightful state exclude?" "Vicious Taurets." The words slipped from his mouth in anger before he could remember that Kira was still in the room. The girl that had been so nice to him earlier. She had been looking at him, but now her eyes were focused on the table. They looked unsurprised, but hurt nonetheless. Raina walked over to a file cabinet in the back of the room, pulling papers out. She dropped them onto the table in front of Dmitri with a thud. "Have a look at Satine's justice," she said, voice breaking. Some of the papers were articles, some photos, some were even stolen classified documents. The photos caught his eye first. One was of a burning village, with soldiers visible in the foreground. The flags on their arms left no room for speculation about who they worked for. Another photo was of a detention center, holding not just adult Torits, but children, toddlers. He read the titles of the articles, and each one was a punch to the gut. Our government's third genocide of a peaceful, isolated Torit tribe. Government murders unwilling Torit test subjects for new army program. Dimitri's blood ran cold in shock. They told me we only locked up the ones that committed crimes and used their powers for evil. I didn't know they were killing and detaining children. They didn't tell us. Where were these even published? The only newspaper that exists is government-owned. Underground newspapers. But that didn't save the authors. Satine had them arrested and disposed of, Raina replied. The sheer amount of violence, death, and destruction they are causing is impossible to know, but nobody cares. Everyone just sees all of us Torits as monsters. The real monsters are them. When the government discovered we had magic, they tried to force us into their army. They wanted to use our magic to kill, over oil disputes of all things. When we said no, that's when this whole anti-Torit campaign started. She sighed, falling back into her seat. We were going to use you as leverage against Satine, but if she is as stubborn and blind as you said... Rena proceeded to punch her fist into the table repeatedly while muttering expletives. I can't go back. Dmitri didn't know whether he was talking to them or himself. What? I'm not going back. I can't return to work for Satine. Not after this. I joined them to keep people safe. Clearly that's not what I'm contributing to. They sat in silence for a moment, just letting the statement sink in. Would you be willing to join... Raina started, but Kira suddenly stood up and spoke. Forget it, Raina. He'll never work with us vicious Torits. We have no place in the rightful state of the country. Her voice was cold. Dmitri cringed at her echoing his words from earlier. I'm sorry, that was unfair of me. I still have much to learn, but I'm willing to if it means ending this evil. Kira looked taken aback. You need a teacher, she scoffed. Are you offering? Well, she certainly wasn't expecting that response. Raina? Kira is right. If you're going to join us, you'll need to learn quite a lot, but I think with some guidance from her, you could become a valuable member of the rebellion. Are you absolutely certain you want to join? Dmitri hesitated for a moment, but reached out to shake the Empress's hand. I'm in. The tiny smile on Kira's face made him certain this was the right choice.